Angela Pearson. I'm the Special Projects Manager for Mayor Tishaura Jones. Thank you for being here in our cabinet and community. At this time, I'm going to give the mic to Mayor Jones, who's going to give us some opening remarks.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out to Cabinet in the Mayor's office, where we want to bring everything to you. And I first want to start by first, obviously, thanking the Jean Slay Boys and Girls Club for hosting us this evening. Let's give them a round of applause. Also want to thank any elected officials who had joined us this evening. Could you please stand, because I don't know where all of you have gone. I know we see Alderman Michael Browning here, Alderman Shane Cohn, Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard, who's my alderwoman. And I think I saw Alderwoman Kara Spencer as well. Also just walking in is Alderwoman Alicia Saunier. And I think I saw our tax collector, our collector of revenue, Greg Daly, somewhere around here. There you are. Good. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Alderwoman Kara Spencer for a few welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here tonight. I see a lot of residents, business owners, folks that live in the 8th Ward that are here as part of our city. Thank you for being a part of our great city, for being a part of the solution, for engaging and being part of tonight's event. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting me to play a small role here in your cabinet and the community. And most importantly, thank you all for just participating and being a member of the great city of St. Louis. Welcome to the 8th Ward, our new ward designations. And I'm extremely honored to represent many of you here in this room, but to represent the interests of the city of St. Louis. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me say a few words tonight.
Thank you, Alderwoman Spencer. As you see, I did not come by myself. There are several city departments who are on the outskirts of the gymnasium. So we'll start to my right, your left. Heat Up, Cool Down, St. Louis. Our Department of Health, the Behavioral Health Bureau. Our St. Louis Area Agency on Aging. If you're looking for a job, go talk to Slate. Next to Slate. Yeah, Slate's a rowdy bunch. Next to Slate is the Office of Violence Prevention. Next to the Office of Violence Prevention is our crisis response team, which I call the Purple Shirt People. Our first responders are with us with the fire department. The Community Development Agency in the back there. We're always looking for new members of boards and commissions, so we're able to take your application tonight if you are interested in serving, which is represented by the back table, Michael. If you're a business owner and you are a small business owner, or you are looking to expand your business, grow your business, start a business, you can go to the Northside Economic Empowerment Center. Also next to them is our Neighborhood Stabilization Team. And last but certainly not least, the Department of Personnel, because we are hiring. Also want to acknowledge, because this is Cabinet in Community, I have brought several members of the mayor's cabinet here with us today. So we'll start here in the back. Cabinet members, stand up because there's too many of y'all to name individually. And over here too, and in the front. We have about 25 to 30 cabinet members, so they are all here. Most of them are here and willing to answer any questions you have. And of course, I could not do this without my wonderful staff. If you are a staff member in the mayor's office, please raise your hand, say hi to the people. Yes. I will take a moment to introduce who's with us at the dais. Starting on my left, your right, this feels like a sorority thing, right? Right. Is our Director of Public Safety, Mr. Charles Coyle. Next to him is the Director of the Office of Violence Prevention, Will Pinckney. Next to Will is the woman with a plan, the Director of Streets, Traffic, and Refuse, Bethany Williams. She's got her own fan club. To my right, your left, is our police chief. I can't call him new anymore because he's been with us for a year. Police Chief Robert J. Tracy. He's gonna hate this. Y'all tell Chief Tracy happy birthday. He just celebrated a birthday not too long ago. Next to Chief Tracy is my Chief of Staff, Jared Boyd. And next to Jared, you've already heard from Alderwoman Kara Spencer. And next to Alderwoman Spencer, I believe, is our timekeeper, Nicole Barton, who runs the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. Got that right. Oh, that was a lot. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for coming. Again, these are quarterly events that we'll be holding in community because we believe that it is important to have updates from your government and give you the opportunity to ask questions. Here's a fun fact. I used to live in Soulard, not too far from here. And I would vacate my apartment every year when Mardi Gras season was upon us. And we know that that's going to be happening in a couple weeks. Please be responsible. That's all I'm going to say. And when I was in the State House, I represented South City. This was part of my district when I represented, when I was in the State House, a state representative. So we have 3 objectives heading into 2024, which is my 3rd year in the mayor's office. We remain steadfast in our efforts to bring real transformational change. Excuse me, I need these glasses. I'm getting older. We remain, again, steadfast in our efforts to bring real transformational change to St. Louis residents, changes that you can see and feel. And change doesn't happen overnight, but my administration is working on a number of projects that are going to change the way many neighborhoods look and feel. And again, I'm happy to report that several members of my cabinet are here tonight to answer any questions you have. So first, on public safety, which is a very important subject, crime is down. I repeat, crime is down. Homicides are down 21%, which is more than 40% than when I first took office in 2021. We have cleared 75% of homicides last year, which is up from 40% in 2020. After 2023, we are experiencing the lowest homicide rate in a decade and the biggest year-over-year decrease in violent crime in 90 years. Overall, Part 1 crimes, homicide, firearm assault, burglary, robbery, aggravated assault is down by 22%, and this is the number I'm most excited about. Juvenile shootings are down 47%. and youth violence is down 50% from last year. Violent crime is still far too common because one life lost to gun violence is one too many. But under Chief Tracy's leadership, it's expected that officers attend neighborhood meetings and not just spend time in their car, but engage with the community. Chief Tracy's leadership focuses on data. He has a ComStat methodology which brings business principles to the police department, and leadership development. He's been doing a lot of leadership development with our officers. We've made historic investments in violence prevention, mental health, and our young people with the Office of Violence Prevention. You can learn more afterwards by going to their tables. But we made these market investments in violence prevention because we realize that police are not the answer to every problem we have in St. Louis. Sometimes we need a mental health worker, a violence interrupter, or another professional. We started the Cops and Clinicians program, which has decreased the number of man hours that our first responders have to use to respond to mental health incidents. We have a 911 diversion line, so when people call 911, they can be connected to a behavioral health professional on the spot. And we just launched really, can I talk about that? And we launched the non-police response just last November. So we have response that doesn't involve officers at all, which again lifts the burden off of our officers' shoulders. We have intense coordination with our juvenile justice system, providing wraparound services to their families. And we have more youth programming. Again, as a mother of the most adorable 16-year-old boy who's much taller than me now, we need to do a better job of giving our kids safe spaces to have fun and just be a kid. So we've sponsored youth parties, we've sponsored extending our rec hours, late hours on the weekends, flag football tournaments, video game tournaments, anything our kids are asking for, we have tried to deliver. And we've rebooted our community violence intervention with street outreach called Show Me Peace, which is launching in Dutchtown and Gravois Park neighborhoods. 911 is an issue that has plagued us for a long time, and we started a hiring push last year under the leadership of Chief Coyle. We've had nearly 40 vacancies in police dispatch, 13 in EMS, and from July 2023 to October, we hired over 40 dispatchers. Our recent stats show that 80% of our calls are being answered within 10 seconds. That number was 56% in July, so we're come a long way. And more on 911, we are building a state-of-the-art facility for our 911 responders. We're gonna break ground on that this year in North St. Louis. Thank you. We've invested over $40 million towards building safer roads and paving. So these projects will start this year and into next year. So we're gonna go north to south on Jefferson Ave. Well, we've already started Jefferson. Grand Boulevard, Kings Highway, Union, and Goodfellow will start to see repaving projects in the coming months. Yes. Goodfellow's around the corner from my house, and it's rough. We've completed several traffic studies that were funded to implement, like the 4th Street study from 4th Street from Broadway and Washington to downtown, and on Grand from Utah to Chippewa. Those traffic studies have been completed and are funded. We'll be implementing those changes soon. We've also had put a list together of the 10 most dangerous crash or hotspots. A few examples in this neighborhood: Gravois at Russell and Tucker. We know that's a pretty bad one. Grand and Gravois, and Broadway and Walnut are just a few of the ones that'll be changing soon. Street safety, however, can vary from ward to ward, depending on whether the alders use their ward capital for these investments, but we are making these investments through ARPA to make sure that we can address street safety. Speaking of driver's education, which is near and dear to my heart because my 16-year-old has his permit now, Lord help me. We received a $60,000 grant from the Missouri Department of Transportation and are partnering with the Boys and Girls Club to provide free driver's education to our high school students. And many of you have asked, when are red light cameras coming back? Well, we announced it in September that we have filed the bill, and we're just waiting for the Board of Aldermen to move on this important legislation to keep our streets safe. And also, if you want to know more about public safety and all of the things that we've done, check out the State of Public Safety report on the mayor's website. Overall, we've committed over half of the city's $498 million ARPA, or American Rescue Plan, appropriation to economic justice to rebuild and invest in neglected communities in North and South St. Louis. I talk about this commitment for every corner of our city because our city cannot succeed if over half of it is left to fail. Rebuilding North St. Louis isn't only the moral thing to do, but if we don't, the rest of the city will shoulder a burden for increasing burden for city services. So if we don't fix North St. Louis, we will all shoulder the burden for the cost of city services. Since taking office, we have funded thousands of units of affordable housing to meet critical needs ranging from helping our unhoused neighbors, providing more senior options, and for sale housing in North St. Louis and parts of South City. We're also building new housing and cleaning up vacant property, whether owned by a private landlord or the city. It's not fair when you take care of your home, but you're forced to live next to a landlord or a property owner who doesn't care about their property. So we are spending $13 million to stabilize privately owned buildings. We're using, again, American Rescue Plan funds on structurally stabilizing those condemned properties by fixing roofs, tuck pointing, and ensuring that the buildings don't fall over on the properties that are next door to them. And then this is But we aren't just investing money to get new people to come. We want our community anchors to not get priced out of their neighborhoods. So I believe that development should happen with community, not to the community. So I recently signed the senior property tax freeze, because as new residents move in and as gentrification happens, we expect property assessments to rise. And this property tax freeze will allow seniors not to get overburdened while property taxes increase. We're also providing tools to help seniors stay in their homes through our Healthy Home Repair program. We put together about $15 million in ARPA funds for the Healthy Home Repair program, and we are on pace to double the number of homes we served in 2023. We helped over 300 residents with fixing roofs, fixing their heating and cooling systems, and making other critical repairs to allow people to stay in their homes. I don't know if you know this, but my administration has increased the annual budget and spending for our unhoused. In the first 3 years, we have increased the city's investment for homeless services to over $40 million. And as far as ARPA investments, we've invested over $37 million in funds for a variety of services for our unhoused neighbors and how to prevent them from becoming unhoused. The Veterans Community Project off of North Grand, which is a tiny home village for veterans with wraparound services to help them get back on their feet. We helped fund 50 of those homes to be built. 20 of them opened just before the end of 2023. And Jefferson Spaces, we expanded Jefferson Spaces from 50 tiny homes to 100 tiny homes, transitioning nearly 200 people into permanent housing after staying with them only about 6 to 9 months. We've opened more shelter beds than pre-pandemic, and we're requiring them to remain open 24/7. But when it comes to services for our unhoused, I'm sure you all know this, that the city bears the burden for the entire region, and that's not sustainable. People come here for services from all over the region, sometimes other places around the country, and that strains our resources and it strains your tax dollars. I am committed to looking at regional solutions to address this issue holistically. On housing, we've also increased our annual budget spending. My administration has increased investment for housing efforts ranging from affordable housing to housing conservation to housing code enforcement. This year, the Affordable Housing Commission tripled its annual awards to nearly $16 million, producing more than 2,000 units for low and moderate income families, including more than 300 new homes, as well as additional support services. We also invested over $91 million in ARPA funds for a variety of housing efforts, such as permanent and supportive housing, affordable housing production, preservation, privately owned property and other housing stabilization, and again, neighborhood beautification efforts. Our personnel department has been on the move and improving. City employees received across the board 9% raises over the last 3 years, and even more through union negotiations for 911 operators, police officers, correctional officers, and frontline workers at the water department, airport, streets, refuse, and parks. Also, we're hiring more fiscal staff for processing contracts, and again, if you need training, Slate is the place to go, right, Slate? Just last year, Slate has served over 1,700 youth, and yes, pat yourselves on the back, ladies and gentlemen. I know there's a few gentlemen at Slate. And if you don't have a CDL or a commercial driver's license, we'll provide one for you for free. Yes, we will train you and then hope you stay with us to become a driver for the city of St. Louis. So we're always hiring. And the last thing I know that's on everybody's mind, everybody's mind. What you gonna do with that Rams money? So St. Louis has the distinction of being the only city that fought the NFL and won. Yes. I sometimes take that on the road when I'm introducing myself to the federal government, and then we'll get to ideas about the Rams money. Now, if I had my druthers, just my idea, if you're listening, I'd like to set up a municipal endowment fund where we live off the interest for many years to come. What a municipal endowment fund does is like we'll invest a majority of it, and then the interest that we make, we can put that in the community towards projects, towards infrastructure, or other things that we want to fund. Because we never know what's gonna happen with our economy. And so keeping a large chunk of it and living off the interest, I think, is the most fiscally responsible thing to do with the gift that we've been given. We can also set up revolving loan funds so that money comes back to the city after it's been spent, and it's been spent in the community and it comes back to us. So that's a revolving loan fund. Providing that if we provide $2 million for businesses, they can access $20 million for their dreams, to start their dreams. And we can add private philanthropic and grant funds to also support our efforts. So we'll be having these discussions sooner rather than later. But again, these are most of the things that we're up to. I know that many of you have questions. And so Angela, well, again, thank you for coming. And Angela's going to tell us what comes next.
All right, so some quick house rules. If you need a bathroom, an all-gender bathroom is located here at the beginning or the entrance of the gym. As it relates to questions, we're going to form a line starting here where we see the mic stand. You'll have 2 minutes to ask your question. We also have comment cards that will be passed around by city staff. If you don't feel comfortable asking your question, you can write it on a comment card. If you're not physically able to walk and get to the line, we will also come to you since we have a wireless mic. If you go over your time, again, it's 2 minutes. We have our lovely timekeeper, Nicole, who has a sign who will indicate when you have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. If you go over your time, I will politely tell you to wrap up your sentence. All right, are we good with those rules? Everybody nod their head in understanding? Great. All right, with that being said, we'll go ahead and start our questions here. If you have a question, feel free to line up.
Hello, and thanks for the opportunity to be here at this town hall. I wanted to address the policing in the city of St. Louis as a business owner and a community stakeholder. I've applied for the North Corridor grant. I've been a stakeholder since 2002 and 2003. The last 3 calls that I've had an incident where I had to call the police. The last one was I had to wait 3 hours. I sat outside the incident where I called. Police never showed up. I put in a request to speak to the police chief, never received a call back. They took my incident and my report over the phone after waiting 3 hours. That was the last incident. 2 incidents before that, I had a commercial building that I'm renovating on a block that I own 90% of. A homeless person broke into that building. My camera caught it. I called the police again. They did not show up. I had to escort that person out of my building myself with a gun. I have video proof to show. The time before that, they did not show. So I'm concerned with my investment. How do we get policing in North City, where we're investing in trying to revitalize our own community without regentification. We need help and support from you all with our own tax dollars and our own personal investment. How do we get that help that we need when we're talking about contractors coming in working on our jobs with the money that we're getting from the grants? So it's kind of like, how do we get the help that we need financially, but then also the safety of the contractors that's working on our projects that we're getting this grant money for?
So I'll answer the first part of your question about the corridor grants. We received over 700 applications for those grants, and we have to vet each of those businesses individually to make sure that they have all of the documentation. So hopefully by this quarter, we'll start to see some of that money start flowing into the community. So if you haven't heard from either your neighborhood manager or SLDC, they have been emailing the businesses to let them know where they are in the process. And then I'll turn it over to Chief Tracy to answer your question about policing.
Thank you, Mayor. So specific to your incidents that you're having right now, we've made improvements with the 911 system as far as having those calls answered in a timely manner because we've gotten the personnel back. Your specific questions that you're asking, what I'd like to do, I got Major Pierre Benoist that's here. It might not even be your area, and I have Sergeant Brush from my office. Can I get specifics on those incidents, the time? We'll do this on the side, because I don't want to give up too much. But if we can get those, because we learned from that, and I can give a better answer, how you called, how it was received by the dispatchers. We do audits, and we find out where we can do this better. Did we make a mistake? Is there retraining? Or is there actually something has to go a different route, that the person's not right for the job? And how we're doing things. But where you are and where you're doing your business, locally at the commander level, at the major level that has the area, the more we can do community meetings, meet with you one-on-one, understand the issues you have, you're going to help us as well and how we respond to that. So on each one of those issues that you had, I'd like to get more information. And I promise you, I have a major that's going to speak to you and grab you. He's in the back of the room right now. You see him raising his hand. Can you speak with him? I'll get that information, and we'll get answers to you and figure out, and then we'll do an audit to see exactly what happened. Okay, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Janice Mensa. My question's for the mayor and for the director of public safety, Charles Coyle. So for 16 months, I served as the chair and then the vice chair of the Jail Oversight Board. So I'm intimately familiar with the reality of the city's effort to put the public back into public safety. And like on the ground, it's actually really terrible. It's not something to celebrate at all. The public is not involved in any serious way. And when they are, they're harmed. But the specific question I wanted to ask, a little bit of context. So according to the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Justice Statistics, our city jail is over 7 times as deadly as the average American jail. And my question is why?
That is a good question. And a lot of systems within city government, we inherited. And we are working our hardest to try to change those systems, the jail being one of them. Since I became mayor, we have since closed and emptied the workhouse, which was a horrible facility that should never have been inhabited. And also we are making the changes necessary to improve conditions in the city jail. We currently have an RFP out on the street to change medical providers. We ended the contract with our previous medical provider after I don't know how many years. And we have an interim medical provider that's currently there until we get a permanent one. We moved $2 million to the Department of Health to hire staff, to hire medical staff to work in partnership with the medical provider that's going to be hired. And our corrections officers, the pay for our corrections officers is more than St. Louis County. So we're currently hiring for corrections officers. If anybody wants to serve, because we need more corrections officers in order to help the people who we are responsible for detaining.
Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Why does the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department still use wanteds to arrest people without a warrant or any court process, even after both the DOJ and a federal court expressed serious concerns about the legality? Why aren't St. Louis police required to get a warrant like police everywhere else in the country? For the record, for you all that don't know, a wanted means that the police can simply enter your name into a database and then they can arrest you without having to go in front of a judge and present evidence that you've committed a crime.
So when it's serious crimes, we do have suspects. We do talk amongst ourselves, share intelligence information. But when a person is probable cause, and then we're looking for a person that is wanted, we are going to put that out to help with the public. Most of the time, it's shared amongst, in a private, confidential way amongst other police departments and ourselves if this person is an individual that's wanted for serious crimes. We don't put that out publicly unless the person is wanted or probable cause at this time. If there's a specific incident that you have, once again, I'd like to get specifics. If it's something that we did not do in the proper way, the feedback that we get, I'll certainly take a look at it with our department, because we do have lawyers, we have counselors that do take a look at this. We check with them to make sure we're within the law and how we're doing things, because we make sure that we have counsel to make sure that we protect the rights and civil liberties of the individuals in our city, and we want to make sure that we're in a good place. So we do legally check with counsel on those. So if there's a specific incident, I would definitely take a look at it and we get back to you. There's probable cause to arrest people. There's reasonable suspicion to arrest people. And when we go through that process, it leads up to where we can arrest people. If we're sharing intelligence information for individuals that it might be in patterns and practices, descriptions that are actually doing violent crimes or doing burglaries, we do put that out amongst ourselves. But we do not release that to the public unless we have a warrant. I asked you if there's incidents that you see. I would love to see them. We can share them with us. Okay. Okay. And I also have our lawyers that work with us and say we're in the right place to do these type of things to keep the city safe. So we can go back and forth, and if there's cases, let's make sure that we can iron that out and see exactly where you're at from the public defender's office. So thank you.
Thank you for those questions.
Hello, and thank you all for spending your evening with us. My name is Justin Eidelberg. I'm the Executive Director of Cabinet District Community Development Corporation. And my question is, how do low-income organizations get the same expedient service that well-regional partner organizations get the same? Because as of March of this year, we're the only, from what the federal government told me, we're the only people in the city of St. Louis, organization in the city of St. Louis that got a Department of Energy grant to help lessen energy burdens. I don't know if you all know this or not, but the city of St. Louis ranges in anywhere from the 99th percentile to 70th percentile in energy burden communities. And the funding that we have received is to help you all, but we can't get any expedient anything, none. We have policy for solar. We have policy to commit, not to commit, but to help with, as I've been hearing, gentrification. We like investment, but we really trying to figure out how can we get the same, because we see people that got all these partnerships, all of this, and no one will help us. None, not from the city government. And we trying to figure out how can we make our neighborhood great again, or the west side itself great again, and we can't do it without our city government giving us technical assistance and other things like that. So I'm just trying to figure out, because everything that's in any paperwork downtown, we meet it, but we can't get Nothing else. Thank you.
So I know for a fact that our sustainability director, Elijah Russell, has been in conversations with you, and she's attended your events when you had the DOE come into town. So I'm yes. So exactly. And so what I'm saying is I know that Alicia's been in communication with you, and she's mentioned that the Office of Sustainability is a resource to you and your organization. So as it relates to the technical assistance piece, I think you know that you have a partner in the city as it relates to this grant.
We tried that, because it was a $10,000 grant for us to do a feasibility study along Delmar, on the northern side of Delmar, as well as the businesses, healthcare centers. And they told us the response was, no. If you get the grant, we're here for you. So we continuing to work though. So I don't know if I want to reach back out after you said no, that we can't do it unless we get the federal funding. And we found alternative ways so we can continue to work. So I'm kind of afraid to go.
So from my understanding, though, is that you received the funding. We can talk more about this, but I know Alicia's been talking to you about it. So to say that the city's not here to support you, we are. She's a resource to you, and I know you have a relationship with her. Yeah. So I just know that we have been in communication with you about your project.
Can I offer something? It's not, I don't know if it's specific to you, but I can say that the Office of Violence Prevention has been partnering with the Mental Health Board, and we're cognizant of smaller organizations needing assistance, so we've been providing that assistance to organization to either apply for funding, or if they need some support in incorporating or building themselves to prepare for funding. That's something we do through my office. It's not specific to you and to sustainability efforts, but there is an understanding that we do need to work with small organizations because they aren't often ready to get funding or don't feel like they're comfortable applying. And so that's something we are trying to do. I don't do that.
All right, next
That's
question.
Hello, my name is Alec. I'm a proud Dogtown resident and I play in the St. Louis Symphony. I bike the north segment of Forest Park often to use the Forest Park to Valavere metro station and to shop and eat in the Central West End. Thus, I was excited to see what the reworked intersection at Union and Lindell would look like. To be honest, I'm let down from what the Board of Public Service had to share about the plan for the new intersection. The proposed redesign has no protected bike facilities despite connecting to Union Boulevard, which already does have one protected bike lane. It also does not employ traffic calming measures, instead adding a new connector road between Union and Lindell, which in my opinion shows that the redesign prioritizes the efficiency of cars over the safety of pedestrians. I think this is a misstep. We only have so many opportunities in the city where we can completely rework an intersection. So why, during a time when we are planning the Brickline Greenway and the Tower Grove connector, are we also proposing a new intersection without protected bike lanes? I can't help but feel like the approach to pedestrian bike safety in St. Louis is fragmented. Thus, my question is, what can we do to ensure cohesion between infrastructure projects in the city? How can we make sure that infrastructure planning in one part of the city is not at odds with another part of the city? And do you think that the formation of a city Department of Transportation by the Charter Commission could help with this? Thank you.
So I don't know if Bethany, I know Rich is here, who's the director of BPS, if anybody wants to talk about that.
Sure, so I can give some high level and then Rich can jump in. Mobility of all users is what's important to us. This administration has taken a step or stride into allocating funds so that we can look at and incorporate some of these smaller studies that have studied mobility and pedestrian and bike lanes across the city of St. Louis. And the mobility plan will bring to us, we will be able to utilize some of these smaller studies that wards and neighborhoods have invested in and encompass them into the plan. Right now, currently, what we utilize for speed humps and things of that nature, Some of these things are good in some areas, but we need to look at a more holistic plan. And what the mobility study will give us, a more holistic plan across the city of St. Louis. To your point exactly, in this block, you see bike lanes. In the next block, you're not developing for bike lanes. So how do we develop across the whole city where we can see egress and travel, and then we don't disturb our business community as well? So I think with this mobility plan, we will see some changes, and it will give us some additional toolbox to function with.
Hi, good evening. My name's Terry Hoffman, and I'm a Soulard resident, so thank you all for having your meeting in our neighborhood. I'm also the chair of the Soulard Community Improvement District, and we are a SID that is funded by a 1% sales tax on all retail sales in the neighborhood. So given the fact that we are an entertainment district, we are a very fortunate SID with the type of revenue that we generate. As such, we have a very diverse board that has come up with a lot of improvements that we want to make with that money and invest in the neighborhood, because that's what we are. That's what our charter is. And you know, we want to do things like improving the infrastructure, you know, of the streets, and improving our lighting for better safety concerns. We want to address traffic calming issues by a variety of issues. We want to improve the infrastructure in our parks that we have. With all that said, and Alderman Spencer is very, very engaged with all the work that we're trying to do, a lot of times we get stuck when we're trying to deal with city bureaucracy and trying to get some of this stuff done. Some departments are phenomenal to work with, others not so much so. And so my question is, you know, how can we as a political subdivision work more efficiently and more expeditiously with the city to help us realize our vision for the benefit of what our SID was created for?
Good question. Are the neighborhood managers here from SLDC? Any neighborhood managers? No. Oh, yes. Hey, SLDC is in the house, yes. So I'd like to connect you with SLDC. We have 9 neighborhood managers who are responsible for connecting neighborhood organizations to city services if they have a neighborhood plan, which it sounds like you do, to connect them to make sure that the things that they're working on get implemented. So I'm gonna raise your hand again, connect you with this gentleman in the back here, and he can have a offline conversation with you about other things that you're trying to do.
And one of our neighbors is an SLDC manager as well, Lisa Aki. So we are very familiar with her as well, and she's also very familiar with some of the issues and challenges that we have too. So, but I appreciate that comment, and we'll definitely talk. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello. My name is Sarah Shelton. I'm a small business owner here in St. Louis. And I guess my question is more for the unhoused folks here in St. Louis. I work with a few mutual aid groups where we go out and we work with unhoused folks in the downtown area, and I talk with them often. I have a grant right now to do storytelling projects with the unhoused community. I work with other artists, muralists, people who are trying to advocate for the unhoused, and so I'm really bad at Googling, so the answer could be here. But I have been getting frustrated with the weather, and it's always this time of year, every year, when it gets winter, it gets to a crisis, and we're like, we gotta do something about this. And I think right now, it got to a point where I Googled, how do I start my own shelter? Because there's a lot of folks who need to be housed, and you know, being a city where we don't have the solutions for them, or it doesn't seem like we have enough beds or anything, is frustrating. So my question is, in areas where, you know, the unhoused are sleeping outside and they can't go to the bathroom anywhere, it's criminalized, but yet the small business owners have to open up their doors for them, but they won't. They can't go to the bathroom anywhere, they can't sleep anywhere, They're being criminalized left and right. Like, what are we doing for the unhoused in order to help them, to get them housed? How can we support bills that the the aldermen put forward to help the unhoused community? Just like, where are we with that, so that way we know how to work towards this with y'all?
Thank you for that question. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Pearson. I'm the director of the Department of Human Services. One of the divisions that we oversee in Human Services is the Homeless Services Division. And so I can talk a little bit about what we've been doing for the unhoused population, especially when it comes to winter planning. I think something that you mentioned really sort of struck a bell with me, in that we need to get started early on winter planning year after year, because as it gets colder and the temperatures drop, it really does become a crisis when you're stuck outside and it's 5 degrees. So our department, in collaboration with the St. Louis Continuum of Care and different members of the COC. If you don't know what the COC is, it is a consortium of organizations that provide homeless services in the community. So our department, in collaboration with the COC, started conversations around August about what would be needed for winter preparation and winter planning. Some of the conversation was geared towards making sure we expanded the number of shelter beds in the city. As a baseline number of shelter beds, we have between 700 and 800 emergency shelter beds in the city of St. Louis. As the mayor mentioned, St. Louis City carries the vast majority of that load across the region. And so what we wanted to do for the winter was make sure that we added to that as much as we possibly could. And so the city funded around 100 more emergency shelter beds above that baseline. We partnered with the St. Louis COC, an organization called Winter Outreach, to supply shelters that were popping up, with even more supplies for that. Some people in this room know that opening a shelter is really difficult to do. And so one of the reasons we don't have a lot of emergency shelter beds in the community is because it's sort of time prohibitive to open up a shelter, and resource prohibitive. And so in addition to all of the emergency beds that we're adding and continue to add in collaboration with partner organizations, what we're really interested in is not just shelter, but it's long-term housing. And so making sure that we're not just relying on emergency shelter where folks come in at night, they have to leave in the morning. That's not a very good long-term solution. And so what our department is very interested in exploring is not only emergency shelter, but a both-and approach where we can add long-term housing to that portfolio as well.
Thank you. I do also want to do a quick time check. It's about 7:09, and I do want to make sure we get to the rest of our department. So Charles will be our last question. If there are any comment cards, please send them to me. Jonathan looks like you might have some, so we can get those questions asked. But I do want to make sure we have at least a good 30 minutes for you all to interact and engage with our departments. So feel free to give me those comment cards, anyone in the staff, so that we can get those questions asked. But as far as line goes, Charles will be our last question.
Hello, I'm Reverend Rodney Olive. I'm associate pastor at St. Alphonsus Rock Church on Grand. My question concerns the derelict buildings on the north side. We have a lot of derelict buildings, abandoned buildings, owners who don't even live in Missouri anymore. I've checked. Now, one of the things I've seen concerns these LRA properties. There are developers who, over the course of the last 10 years, they didn't buy a property, they bought blocks of properties and have done nothing with those properties. They sit on them. And those abandoned properties, they fuel drug addicts, they fuel the drug crimes that the police have to deal with. And when it gets cold, our homeless are going into these buildings, as they should. They need to get warm, so what do you do when you're cold? You start a fire. My question is, how does the city hold developers accountable? Because they seem to be above accountability. How do they hold them accountable and take back the properties that the city sold them because they haven't fulfilled their contract?
Well, earlier in my remarks, I talked about what we're doing to hold those developers accountable. We have set aside about $15 million for private building stabilization. So we'll go in, stabilize that property. We have the first 60 that we're doing now. We'll stabilize that property and then bill the owner. And what has started to happen is those owners will have been pushed to do something with that property. They'll either sell it or give it back to the city. We're doing the same thing with LRA properties. We've set aside about another $15 million in conjunction with the Regional Crime Commission to demolish, as well as other money that we have paired with the American Rescue Plan Act to stabilize those properties. So again, you know, a lot of these properties didn't get this way overnight. And we are doing everything that we can to either stabilize or demolish to pave way for new development to come to communities that haven't seen investment in decades. But again, we didn't get here overnight, and we won't get out of it in one term, probably not 2 terms, but we have to stay diligent and making sure that we're staying the course. So we will, again, we started with the first 60. We'll do another 60. We will hold these developers accountable. SLDC is also doing some work to take some land back so we can do more development in North St. Louis and parts of South St. Louis. So we're working, but this doesn't happen overnight.
Hi, I'm Evie Hemphill. I'm a St. Louis resident of about 14 years now, and I've been a children's bike teacher at Soulard-based St. Louis Bee Works for about 13 of those years now. And we've been able to get more and more kids out being active and getting used to alternative transportation. We also teach them how to be as safe as possible on their bicycles. But I will say in that more than a decade in doing that, things have gotten harder and harder in terms of just like finding places in our city and in our region for children and teens to actually be safe getting around their community. And I've had more and more people just in the past 18 months in my circle harmed by drivers. So, and even when we take steps to kind of move off the streets entirely, like for instance, we've been trying to get kids to explore the Riverfront Trail and our Mississippi River more. It's become almost impossible to actually get children and teens up what should be a cherished trail in our city, the Riverfront Trail. It's almost impossible to get between the north side and the Arch grounds. I've tried this recently. Now the casino has blocked not just some of the streets, but the sidewalks. So I'm wondering, what will it take to finally prioritize children's safety and just their rights, I think, to explore their community reasonably safely in St. Louis? Thank you.
Well, we have also funded the mobility study, which is going to take a look at our city holistically and how people get around, because our goal is to make sure that everyone is safe to get around our city, no matter how they choose, if it's biking, driving, walking, public transit. And so that's about a $40 million allocation, but mobility studies do take time. So I ask that you give us patience. This is the first time we've done a citywide mobility study. There are other traffic studies that have been sitting on desks or on shelves that haven't been implemented. This money will also allow us to implement some of those traffic studies. And we're addressing the 10 most dangerous intersections as well. And we're also addressing our major thoroughfares to redesign and repave those major thoroughfares to make sure that, again, people are safe no matter how they choose to get around.
Good evening, Mayor. I want to thank you and the Board of Aldermen for the work you all have done, specifically around engaging the residents and businesses around ARPA funding and what they may want before you put in the board bills, as well as the money for the RAM settlement. You all did an incredible job. My question is there a way in the budget process to engage residents before E&A makes its vote and sends that bill to the Board of Aldermen. It seems that perhaps residents, if they knew more about the process and understood more about the process and become engaged in it, there might be some valuable information that they then could glean to the various departments in the city. Thank you.
Good question. I am coming up on my third or fourth budget cycle. I've lost track. But within the budget cycle, we do have public hearings before the Board of E&A. And we sit there for at least 2 hours and take every question from the community about what they like to see in the budget. And the result of some of those meetings is we have taken those suggestions to heart and have made changes in the budget based on the feedback that we get from the community from those public meetings. So we do take information from the community. If they show up to the public hearing with the Board of E&A on the budget, which happens in April of every year, and we make sure that we take some of those suggestions and make changes.
Mayor Jones, do you have any closing remarks?
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming and thank everyone for showing up. This is a beautiful room. Everybody really cares about their community, cares about government. And please know that our cabinet members, our staff, the people who show up every day and work for the city of St. Louis do it because they love their jobs. I know I love my job. Do you love your job, Chief? He loves his job too. But again, this is a quarterly event, and if you weren't able to engage with us, please stay and engage with any of the tables that are around the room because our staff are here. They could be at home with their families, but they're here to make sure that you get all of the information you can from your government. We're here to work for you, not the other way around. So thank you again for coming, everyone. God bless.